ta'ala.
الحمد لله الذي لا تراه العيون ولا يصفه الواصفون ولا تخالطه الذنون ولا يخشى الدوائر، يعلم عدد قطر الأمطار وعدد ورق الأشجار وعدد ما أظلم عليه الليل وما أشرق عليه النهار، ولا توالي منه سماء سماء ولا أرض أرضا. اللهم أنت أحق من عبد وأحق من ذكر وأنسر من ابتغي وأرأف من ملك وأجود من أعطى وأوسع من سئل. أنت الفرد لا ند لك وأنت الله لا شريك لك. كل شيء هالك إلا وجهك، لن تطاع إلا بإذنك ولن تعصى إلا بعلمك. تطاع فتشكر وتعصى فتغفر. القلوب لك مفضية والسر عندك علانية. الحلال ما أحللت والحرام ما حرمت والدين ما شرعت والأمر ما قضيت. العبد عبدك والخلق خلقك والأمر أمرك، فأنت الله الرؤوف الرحيم. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: قل بفضل الله وبرحمته فبذلك فليفرحوا هو خير مما يجمعون. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: يا أبا سفيان جئتكم بكرامة الدنيا وخير الآخرة، أسلم تسلم، أو كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. My dear brothers, sisters, elders and youngsters, it is the common norm of human beings all across the world, including ourselves, that one of the strongest ways that we seek a sense of honor and a sense of presence within our lives is through the affiliations that we keep. Whether those affiliations are attached to the countries that we come from, whether those affiliations are attached to the education that we have achieved, whether those affiliations are attached to where we work in life. Affiliations and associations become a great part of a person's recognition in life. And that recognition is what allows them to feel somewhat present. They feel like they're worth something, and as they should, and as we should. They feel a sense of honor and prestige through their education. They feel a sense of honor and prestige because of the company that they work for. The walk changes, their way of speaking may change, their way of interacting may change, and the question is how and why did the change come? It's because now I feel a sense of prestige, sense of honor, because I'm affiliated to this university. I'm now in this med school, now I've achieved so and so in my career, now I feel an honor. Affiliations is inseparable from the honor that a person experiences in life. My dear friends, brothers and sisters, there is no affiliation. There is no association that creates more honor, more presence within our hearts, a sense of empowerment and enablement, more so than the affiliation of simply being the slave of Allah, being the abd of Allah. Every other affiliation in this world is temporary. It comes and it goes. People honor us for who we are today, but tomorrow that affiliation is stripped from us, and there's no one there to speak to us. Tomorrow that education is not in use anymore. Now, just like how a car that isn't used, it's junked, people will junk us. Just like how a product, when it stops serving its purpose, is put aside and it's sold as a used product, people will sell us in the sense of not finding any benefit in us. And the affiliation of being the abd of Allah is such that regardless of how broken we are, how useless we are to the people of the world, we are still and will always remain useful to Allah. Those tears will always be beloved to Allah. Those sajdas will always be beloved to Allah. That dua will always be beloved to Allah. Such is this affiliation that it's not looking for us to be reciprocal, it's simply looking to give. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. That let my slave know that I've always been there. The honor of being a slave of Allah is what allows us to walk knowing that Allah is with us. When the Prophet ﷺ is in the cave of Thawr with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, as he is escaping from the people of Mecca, and he seeks refuge in this cave for 3 days. And as he's sheltered in this cave, the Meccans and the Mushrikun of Mecca, they happen to find the cave the Prophet was seeking refuge in. And they climbed the same mountain, and they reached the mouth of the cave. They reach the mouth of the cave. Sometimes the difficulty reaches our doorstep. Sometimes the hardship has entered into our home. Sometimes it's actually impacted us. But the Prophet in this moment, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he looks up and he sees these people walking on top of the cave. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, in a quivering voice, لَوْ نَظَرَ تَحْتَ قَدَمَيْهِ لَأَبَصَرَنَا. If they simply look down, they will find that we are here and we'll be dead. There's nothing that can save us. There's no affiliation that can help us now. The Prophet looks upon Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and says, Ya Abu Bakr, مَا ظَنُّكَ بِاثْنَيْنِ اللَّهُ ثَالِثُهُمَا. Oh Abu Bakr, what are your assumptions? What are your thoughts of these two people? Whilst the third is Allah. لَا تَحْزَنْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ مَعَنَا. Don't grieve, don't be afraid, and let the anxiety be rested. Of course, there is always going to be fear. There's always going to be a sense of anxiety. There's always going to be challenges that come in life. But the nearness of Allah that comes from understanding that we are the slaves of Allah. Every affiliation can be compromised, but the affiliation of being Allah's slave cannot be compromised. لا تحزن إن الله معنا. Don't be sad, not because I have a strategy, because I have a plan, because I'll tell you a way to get out. We as Americans or people living in this country, we oftentimes will always think about the how before we think about the who. The first question that we ask is, how am I going to get out of this? And that's not something which is incorrect, but it's a secondary question. The primary question that believers should ask, and I should ask myself in that moment, is who is still with me? Like when the airplane is in major turbulence, the question is the pilot still moving? Is the pilot still in control? If the pilot passes out, then we're in trouble. Similarly, as the turbulence of life hits us, and it will hit every single person in Ramadan, is a reminder of how that turbulence is stabilized. The turbulence is not stabilized because the month and the calendar changed. The turbulence is stabilized because in this month I refine and reignite the most important affiliation of life, which I am a slave of Allah. And being a slave of Allah is honorable. The who is more important. Inna Allah ma'ana. Allah is with me. I don't have a plan. When a person recognizes Allah is with them, the strategy that people are looking for, Allah takes responsibility of it. Now pigeon eggs and a spider web can protect the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet says to Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, he says, O Ibn Abbas, O my beloved son, وَلَوْ اجْتَمَعَ النَّاسِ على أن ينفعوك بشيء لم ينفعوك إلا بما قد كتبه الله لك. If all of mankind and all their affiliations were to come together to bring benefit to you, they would not be able to bring you any benefit. If Allah had not written for it, the greatest honor is being the person who recognizes that I am Allah's slave. Isa alayhi salam speaks from the cradle. And when he speaks up, he doesn't introduce himself to the world primarily as a prophet of Allah. He says, Inni Abdullah. I am Allah's slave. The Prophet is taken on this beautiful journey of his ascension to the heavens. And Allah honors him by saying, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abadihi. All glory and purity is for Allah who took his slave on this journey. When a person recognizes in this blessed month that I am the slave of Allah, now there draws a nearness. Inni qareeb. This person feels close to Allah. In that moment of closeness, a person now goes ahead and he feels comfortable or she feels comfortable asking of Allah. No one in life will ever feel comfortable asking someone for something and being vulnerable in front of them if they don't feel close to them. Closeness is what creates the comfort with Allah. Closeness is what allows a person to cry at night. The only condition of a dua being accepted is to simply know that Allah is close to me. The Prophet said, "Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijabah." Call upon Allah, and the condition of your dua being accepted is call upon Allah and know that before my head lifts above the sajjada, and there's still tears rolling down my cheeks because of the struggles of life that all of us experience, and they're still moist, know that my dua is accepted. That type of recognition can only be experienced when we recognize Allah is close to me. The default state of Allah is inni qareeb. Whether or not we experience it is something that we make an intention and make an effort for throughout the month of Ramadan. That now I'm close to Allah. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. Now I call upon Allah. The hidden amal, Rasulullah would say, the hidden ibadah in the month of Ramadan, which allows a person to ascend within the ranks of Allah, is being able to speak to Allah, being able to call upon Allah. How many of us are struck when a person recognizes that I am a slave of Allah? Using others becomes a secondary option. Using Allah becomes a primary option. Whenever I treat Allah as a secondary option, know that Allah's response to us will always be secondary. And when I treat Allah as a primary source of relief, Allah will treat me as a primary recipient of His response. أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ وَيَجْعَلَكُمْ خُلَفَاءَ الْأَرْضِ أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ. Allah is the one who responds to that person in the moment of desperation. Abu Darda radiallahu anhu used to say that the way that we were taught to call upon Allah is like a person who is drowning. That all they know is to call upon out loud, and Allah will save them. When a person recognizes this, then what the people say doesn't affect us. Many of us have heard that, you know what, perhaps you cannot have a child. Many parents are seeking children. Many parents are hoping to have children, and people have said, maybe you won't have a child. Maybe you won't become so-and-so. Maybe you won't get into this college. We respond to them by saying, who in the world gave you the keys of Allah's treasures? Allah's treasures belong to Allah. عنده خزائن السماوات والأرض. عنده خزائن السماوات والأرض. له ملك السماوات والأرض. The treasures of this world only belong to Allah. The jurisdiction of giving blessings only belongs to Allah. Allah says, and He challenges us, أَهُمْ يَقْسِمُونَ رَحْمَةَ رَبِّكَ. Do the people of the world actually believe they have a say in who receives my blessings? نحن قسمنا بينهم معيشتهم. We are the ones that distribute blessings to people. They told Zakaria alayhi salam, that why are you asking Allah for a child? It's been 40, 50 long years that you've been begging Allah for a child. You've been asking year after year, being the Prophet of Allah. It's not happening. People will say that to you and I, it's not happening. Zakaria alayhi salam responds and he says, I wasn't asking you. يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ وَجَعَلْهُ رَبِّي رَضِيًّا. I ask Allah, and I never become despondent in my call towards Allah. يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. We don't lose hope in calling upon Allah, because Allah rather enjoys us calling towards Him. They said, why are you asking? He said, I'm asking Allah. And after years of calling upon Allah, فَاسْتَجَبْنَا لَهُ وَوَهَبْنَا لَهُ يَحْيَى. We accepted his dua. People will come and say that the sickness cannot be relieved, it cannot be cured. You will live this way, you will die this way, and perhaps we will. Perhaps I won't have a child. Perhaps I won't be sick. Perhaps my finances will be tight. Perhaps life will remain the way it is. But the moment I realize that Allah is still with me, stability is gained. And if I have everything else, but Allah has been distanced from me, then there will never be stability in life. Stability can only come from an anchor. Anchors don't move. Dunya is made to move. It's made to change. Allah doesn't change. Allah doesn't move. لَن تَجِدَ سُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا. Allah's sunnah will never change. They came and said to Ayyub alayhi salam that your 7 years have gone by and look at your state. He said, I'm asking Allah, أَنِّي مَسَّنِيَ الضُّرُّ وَأَنْتَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. That Allah, I've been touched by this affliction and you are the most merciful of those who show mercy. Use Allah as a primary source and Allah will activate all of His creation to support us. Allah will change the norms of life, like how we did for Zakaria to give him a child. Miracles take place
when a slave of Allah learns how to speak to Allah. When a slave of Allah enjoys conversing with Allah in the middle of the night. They came to Musa alayhi salam. They said, "Oh Musa, you brought us into this debacle where there is a sea in front of us and there's an army behind us. فَأَتْبَعَهُ فِرْعَوْنُ وَجُنُودُهُ بَغْيًا وَعَدْوَةً." We're stuck. إِنَّا لَمُدْرَكُونَ. We are finished. We're completely annihilated. Musa alayhi salam once again turns to them and says, "I wasn't asking for you to help. إِنَّ مَعِيَ رَبِّي سَيَهْدِينِ." Allah is with me. The who takes precedence over the how. And when a slave of Allah recognizes this, the movements of life, though they will create some challenges, they will never take a person away from Allah. Rather, they will bring a person closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can even happen with our own children. How many of us are struggling with our own children, family members, spouses? That this person has gone far from deen, or this person has become disrespectful, this person, and people will say, "Well, your son and daughter have no chance. Let it be, worry about other things." If that was the case, then Ya'qub alayhi salam would never have continued asking Allah for support. They said to Ya'qub, "Tallahi tafta'u tadhkuru Yusuf." That you keep talking about Yusuf, he is history. He is history, let it be. And he said, "I was never asking you anyways. إِنَّمَا أَشْكُو بَثِّي وَحُزْنِي إِلَى اللَّهِ." I was complaining to Allah. My dear friends, brothers and sisters, Ramadan is a month that reminds us that the affiliation that we honor the most is the affiliation of being Allah's slave. And when a person recognizes that I am Allah's slave, now their life is lived in a manner that fulfills his obligations to the best of their abilities. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The introduction of Allah to the world is that I am your Lord, I am your Master. When a person recognizes that I am the slave of Allah as a primary relationship, now they feel close to Allah. And when a person feels close to Allah, they feel comfortable asking Allah. There is no sin that is too large for a person to be removed from Allah's inclusive mercy. And there is no challenge that is too large, that is inclusive, that is outside of Allah's help and support. إِن تَنْصُرُوا اللَّهَ يَنْصُرْكُمْ وَيُثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَكُمْ. Allah says the more we support His deen, the more Allah will support us. احفظ الله يحفظك. We take care of our relationship with Allah, Allah will take care of our relationship with the rest of the world. Ibn Ata'ullah as-Sakandari rahmatullah alayhi would say, "Man wajadahu wajada kulla shay, wa man faqadahu faqada kulla shay." Whoever has found Allah has found everything. Whoever has lost Allah has certainly gained nothing. This is a message of these beautiful nights and these beautiful days, that we're once again able to commit to this relationship through our du'as, through our relationship with Allah. And by doing so, we can move the world simply by sitting on a prayer mat, like the Prophet of Allah did, and the Persians and the Romans were shaking because they knew that there was someone asking Allah, and that relationship was like no other affiliation in this world. May Allah allow us to reconnect, to grow, to strengthen such a relationship that will not only serve us in this world, but when we're 6 feet under that relationship, will once again rescue us on the day of judgment, will once again be a source of our salvation. May Allah make us amongst these people. Wa akhu da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.